Good morning. Good morning. As you settle down, I just wanted to give a little bit of a brief about this panel. So very warm welcome again to the last day of the forum. This session is on boosting the capabilities for the digital creative sector. As per World Economic Forum, the creative industries contributed close to 3 trillion to global GDP in 2020. Digitalization has so profoundly impacted on the creative industry as well, apart from many other industries, as we can all personally also witness the whole digital journey of the creative industry, and we can bear testimony to that in our own personal lives. And while already on a rapid growth path, I think COVID-19 also accelerated the digital transformation of the creative industry as well. So the multimedia, creative industry, digital music, digital art, you name it, all of them have been very significantly impacted upon by the digital promise as well as the opportunities. My first engagement with the sector was actually 2016, 2017, when the Inter-American Development Bank was involved in assessing the creative industry for the Latin American region. So I was part of their reference group for their study on the orange economy in 2017. So I've been trying to do something like this for Asia from then on, and I think maybe there had to be a good moment in time to do that. And more recently, there's been so much more work on the digital industry, on the creative industry, including the digital one by, for instance, Creative Industry 4.0 by UNCTAD, and ADB has also done some study, UNESCO, and several others. For the education group, the topic is really important because how we see the connection to skills and jobs. But really a lot more, given the promise of the economic promise of the sector, really a lot more needs to be done to understand the skill requirements and how we turn this economic potential into quality jobs and economic prosperity for people, young people, and also those who are excluded from the mainstream from jobs. So we have a really power-packed panel today, comprising representatives of industry heavyweights and also policymakers from the government, deeply interested in promoting the sector amongst us today. The format of the session is that we will start with a short presentation on the initial findings of a joint ADB Netflix study on the digital creative industry. I want to give a shout out to Uni, who's leading the study on behalf of ADB with Netflix. So we'll have Ludo DeSantis, who's an economist in the DeSalle group. She's collaborating with ADB on the study, and she will shortly make the opening presentation. Then we have Undersecretary Rafalita Aldaba, the great champion from the Department of Industry and Trade, and she really leads several influential initiatives to do with Fourth Industrial Revolution, artificial intelligence, and the DTI's Innovation and Industry 4.0 activities, and also around the ecosystem for startup and innovation. A wonderful policy advocate to join us. Then we have from Tencent, Yuri Larlio, please excuse me for the pronunciation, who is a senior public affairs manager for Asia Pacific in Tencent. He leads Tencent's public affairs and policy work in Southeast Asia. He oversees the company's engagements with governments and also partners on programs and policy developments to really promote the impact of technology on the economy and community. Last but certainly not least, we have Sergio Vinay, the director for campaigns and partnerships and public policy at Netflix. We've been conversing with you for a long time now, and together with Uni. And Sergio champions also public policy in the domain of including regulatory issues in the sector, together with his industry engagement. Thank you so much for coming today. So we'll start with a presentation from Ludo, and then after that, we'll invite the panelists to come on stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shanti, and a big thanks also to ADB for setting up this amazing forum and for giving us the opportunity to present this very interesting study we've been working on in the past months. So today we'll talk about elevating human capital within the creative economy sector. But before we start, okay, I have it. Before we start, let me ask you a question. Do you remember when these were the only options we had to enjoy content? So fast forward 20 years, only 20 years. And today, games, films, music, they're available anywhere and anytime through our smartphones and internet connections. But sometimes change happens so fast that it goes unnoticed. So for example, did you know that a single K-pop band is worth to the South Korean economy more than $3.6 billion per year? Or that Asian movies are already topping global streaming charts? Or that a young Vietnamese guy developed an app, a game app, over the weekend, very simple one. It went viral in more than 100 countries, and this guy was earning $50,000 per day. Not even Mark Zuckerberg became rich so fast. Did you know that it takes one movie only to crowd or even overcrowd a tourist destination? Or this is also a very interesting one, that India very recently released its first movie ever, shot entirely in virtual production. What does it mean? It means no physical sets, no green screens, just LED backgrounds and game engines. So all of these are snapshots of a new era for the creative economy. New technologies have brought new distribution models, so streaming, e-commerce, apps, and also new ways of working. So this is the age of remote working, of cross-border collaboration, and this has opened up new and unprecedented opportunities for economic growth and job creation. Not just in cinema, it is digital creative industry that ride the tech tsunami. So you can see here how gaming and streaming are expected to have in the next 2-3 years double-digit growths that are even higher than the average economy. Employment-wise, the impact is not just for the industry itself, but an estimate of BCG tells us that for every job created in the media and entertainment industry, 3.7 direct indirect jobs are created in the wider economy. Pretty powerful. So everyone, like the pie is growing, everyone wants a bigger slice of the pie, but not all countries are prepared to seize these new opportunities. So what is the necessary condition? Of course, having a large, skilled workforce. And this is where our study comes in. What we really tried to do in the past months was to answer 3 fundamental questions. First, what are concretely these new opportunities opened up by digitalization? 2, is there a skill gap, a failure in the education system that might prevent countries from reaping the benefits of this new wave? And third, what policy settings could support talent development in creative industries? Very quickly, our focus for this study was on 3 main sectors: music, film, and gaming, on 4 countries: India, Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam. And our findings were informed mainly by desk research, but mostly by interviews with local players and stakeholders. Let's start from the opportunities. So as a first main big opportunity, what we realized is that streaming services made the world a smaller place. So now content travels seamlessly across geographies, and this allows local creators to reach global audiences. And the consequence is that demand for Asian content is booming. Second point, foreign direct investments are increasing. Here you see an example. Ubisoft, gaming giant, just opened a big mobile game development studio in Vietnam. And on the audiovisual side, co-production opportunities are increasing. So Netflix announced more than 180 movies will be produced in Southeast Asia only. And when Netflix produces content, it doesn't only put money, it looks for co-production partners locally. So this creates new, great employment opportunities for local talent. And finally, please don't restart. Finally, production value chains are getting more global and segmented. You can see here, this was the production value chain of the movie Crazy Rich Asian. You can see how many different countries are contributing to the production of the same movie. And what is the opportunity here? The opportunity is to specialize in a single vertical and capture value, enter the global value chains. An example here is India, which is already positioning itself as a global visual effects hub. And in the last year only, 6 global players have started operations in India, just to give you an idea. So this is very quick for the opportunities. Let's move to the second question. So what is the state of skills, of talent, of education systems in these countries? So what interviews with local stakeholders told us is that there are certain skill gaps, talent shortages, and problems in the education systems that are preventing countries from fully reaping the benefits of the digital wave. So here there are a few examples of roles in highest demand and shortest supply in audiovisual and in gaming. And as you can see, the shortage relates both to creative roles like screenwriters and technical roles like programmers. This shortage is due partially to failures in education system. So education institutions are struggling to keep the pace with changing standards. And the consequence is that, the key issues are that, one, there are not enough university courses related, for example, to game design or film production. 2, these courses are too focused on theory. 3, there is little academic business dialogue. So sometimes curricula are not industry relevant. 4, there is lack of specialization. So sometimes there are movie studies, but they're very broad and don't teach you a specific job. And finally, curricula are outdated. So what is government doing? Government is showing effort. So here are a few examples of initiatives, capacity building initiatives they have organized. But the problem is that sometimes these initiatives are scattered. So they're not part of a bigger strategy, and awareness in general among industry players is low. So this brings us very quickly to the final question, which is, what can policymakers do? So first of all, an important thing for policymakers is to start thinking of education not as a single moment in life that happens before work, but as a continuous experience that lasts the whole life. Because if technical skills become outdated every 2-3 years, workforce needs continuous upskilling to keep up with changing standards. Second point, another thing we noticed is that sometimes there are more ministries, more agencies that are responsible for the development of a single sector. But the risk here is that these entities will lack coordination and 360-degree view of the sector. So better to have, like, countries that have been successful at developing creative industry usually have one government agency that sets the vision and the strategy to achieve it. Point number 3, there is no one size fits all. So policies need to be tailored to the specific needs of each subsector. Point number 4, how do you do that? Through data collections. So data is necessary to tailor policies and also to measure their impact. Point number 5, I'm almost done, I swear. So defining national trading standards is necessary, and this should be done in collaboration with the private sector. National standards are a reference point for universities that develop curricula, for industry players that want to train their workforce through internships or internal training programs. And finally, again, foster collaboration with the private sector, sometimes also offering some incentives. So I found really interesting this, this program by Singapore that basically it's a funding program, so grants for producing content. But they say, like, I'll give you a certain amount of money if you involve some of my people in the production. This is it from my side. Thank you very much. I'll leave the floor again to you.
Thank you, Ludo, for that excellent presentation, which really helps to set the stage for this discussion. There's a lot to be done in terms of capitalizing on opportunities. Let me start with Yusek Rafalita. You've just wrapped up a month-long celebration of the creative industries in the Philippines, and you had a really spectacular closing day discussions as well as a performance. The Philippine Creative Industries Development Act is now law, right? I mean, it's now passed into law. So the country is doing a lot to promote the industry. How do you see the future of this industry in terms of promoting quality jobs, and where do you see the biggest lags and gaps for skills that must be addressed? And also looking to the fact that digital creatives has its own peculiarities, and you have been leading the work on the 4IR and innovation. So how do you see the two things coming together? Creativity, technology, good jobs, and where are the skills needed? Thank you. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Now you can hear me. And thank you, Shanti. Those are really very interesting questions. Our strategy is really moving towards the integration of our culture, technology, and creativity, because this is really going to be the key by which we'll be able to create more and better jobs, higher paying jobs in this sector. And like what you've said, we've just recently passed a legislation, the Philippine Creative Industries Development Act, which actually will be addressing some of the points that Ludo has raised our industry really is highly fragmented in the sense that there's so many government agencies that are mandated to promote the industry. But prior to the law, of course, there was very little coordination. But right now, a council has been formed, and it's made up of 10 government agencies, along with 9 representatives from the different creative domains. And it's going to be leading the policy formulation, along with the crafting of programs and the plans. Of course, the Creative Industry Development Plan is being formulated and overseen by the council. And hence, right now, really the move is towards strong collaboration, not only within government, but it's really together with the industry, the other stakeholders, and the academe, of course. And we've just celebrated the Philippine Creative Industries Month, the entire month of September. And just to share some numbers which would illustrate how this has really been building the momentum in terms of building the industry. There were 75 co-branded and co-bannered events that which involved 980 creative firms, 8,000 artists, 5,000 artisans, 3,000 creators, 1,200 content providers, 20,000 creative workers. And there were over 1 million participants online and over 250 participants nationwide who attended all of these events physically. We're still not yet counting the spillover effects, which Ludo, you also pointed out earlier. And that's why really it's important for us to continue and sustain the growth and development of the industry, taking into consideration all the new technologies, which I won't mention them anymore because Ludo already discussed them exhaustively earlier. But yeah, this sector is facing a lot of opportunities, but at the same time, in order for us to take advantage of these opportunities, we really need to build our capacity in digital services, including software development, information technology, R&D, and audiovisual media. And for the Philippines, we have a huge talent pool. And right now, actually, the industry is contributing around 7% to our GDP with around 7 million workers. And in terms of exports, 6.6% creative exports. That's how big the contribution is in terms of our total exports. And we're seeing that given our talent pool, the Philippines is also leading in terms of outsourcing, game development, along with animation and software services. And hence, really a lot of opportunities and offerings that Philippines can provide. Cultural export as well. I think I would also include that. And in terms of the region, I guess our market size is in Asia. That's over 650 million. And again, a very huge market. And we know that it's really important for us to work together, not only within the country, but as well as globally. We need to work as well in the region. In ASEAN, we're actually proposing the establishment of an ASEAN Creative Economy Working Group that would be the platform by which regional collaboration could flourish as we develop this industry. We know that while, of course, we're focusing on the development of the Philippines, but at the same time, we know that by working together in the region, we can make ASEAN a creative economy hub. Sorry, my time is up.
No, fantastic. Thank you. No, that's fantastic. I think we should think about Philippines becoming a CBO, or a creative business outsourcing hub for globally, because BPO has been such a strong stay for the economy, and there's been going up the value chain. And this could well be a new creative cluster or hub that that you talked about in the Philippines and in the ASEAN.
Yes, may I quickly also respond to that? While of course we're quite strong in terms of outsourcing services, but right now the direction is really towards creating more original content and more IP products and services.
Absolutely, fantastic. Thank you so much. Let me turn to Early. Tell me, how do I pronounce your name? Okay. Tencent wears the market crown in top revenues as the global gaming industry. Beyond the commercial aspect, Tencent is also looking to leverage gaming as a way to embrace culture and creativity for people, and also as a way to bond, as well as create that spirit of oneness. How do you see the in terms of Tencent's work and also more globally in the gaming industry, how do you see the skills and talent for the industry, and more specifically for gaming, and how can young people, in addition to playing games on their phone, contribute to this industry as a way to learn, as a way to access quality jobs, and to create economic value? Over to you.
Thanks very much, Shanti, and thank you, ADB, for having me and organizing this very important topic and seminar on building talent in the creative industry. It's a very close topic to my heart. Just a quick line on Tencent. We have products in digital content, long form, short form video, gaming, of course, which is why creative economy, creativity, innovation, and entertainment is really part of Tencent's lifeblood. Maybe I'll just step back and unpack, Shanti, your question on how I think the thing you mentioned just now, how do we look at games as more than just playing, more than just entertainment? And I think that really goes to the heart of it. If you go into our studios, you don't really see people playing games all the time. I know they do it in their lunch times, but you actually see rows of programmers, developers, coders who are doing backbreaking work and trying to code the most difficult type of games and putting it onto our mobile phone. And that's where games is a really very interesting intersection between art and technology. So if you look at the gaming ecosystem and how it can contribute to jobs, you go to the start of game development. That's the start of the ecosystem. And that's where you have very regular, very high in demand kind of skills that are required in the gaming industry. That's your computer programmers, developers, game designers. In fact, just a fun fact, one of the game design department chairs in one of the universities in Singapore, he complained that our students are so much in demand that none of them actually end up in the game industry. They end up in your banks, they end up in your big tech companies, because to code and to produce a game, it's such an arduous task that could land you a job in almost any other tech company or bank. So that's the first. I think one of the key points for governments, for stakeholders, for parents to know. Hello, testing. Hi, hello. Hi, yeah, we're back. For even parents to note is that the hard skills that are required at the very start of the game development pipeline, it's something that's very transferable. It's something that I think a lot of governments in Southeast Asia and even in Asia, they'll be very happy to know that putting a student through a game design course is putting through him or her through all the sort of steps in order to produce a good piece of technology and software. So that's the first step. And I think if we move on further down into the development pipeline of a game, you look at publishing, and that's where you have skills that are required in marketing, in business development, in finding sponsors, in localizing content, similar to what I believe Netflix and Tencent does very much, where we operate in the markets that we are in. We try to reach out and tell a story to the players that are in the region. So these are very much part and parcel of the publishing life cycle of the game development pipeline. And after that, I think, and also what Undersecretary mentioned in terms of producing original content, I think in terms of IP protection, that's a very big part of where the game industry also has a very important part in boosting economy in terms of protecting the IP that's created by the developers, by the publishers. And I think one important aspect of IP creation is not just creating your own IP as part of the game development process, but also cross-collaborating with various different IPs. So you see that in original productions, where in games, I think Netflix also produced a very popular series based on League of Legends, which is produced by Riot Games. And I think that's where the magic happens. IP is not just singular, it is cross-collaborative. It works across different media, whether it's games, whether it's on OTT platforms, and whether it can even come from books and anime that has produced very successful IP in games and in video as well. So I think if you look at going back to your question, Shanti, in terms of the contribution or what can someone who's just playing on his mobile phone look to in the game industry, I think it starts from game development, game publishing, protecting the IP, and pushing the IP further to cross-platform kind of collaboration.
Thank you, Yule. That was excellent. Really put the context on the industry development and the sort of deep tech that goes into this industry, which can then branch out into many different occupations. Let me come to you, Sergio. Netflix is such a visible global brand, and you're collaborating with us on this study. There has been, I think Netflix saw, due to COVID, a really steep rise in viewership and so on. But I guess now things are balancing out. Things are also becoming the new norm. So it's not going back to the original levels. And if you see future market prospects, Ludo's presentation gave really a very good overview of all the things that are appearing in the market and the sort of the Asian markets also rising up to the potential. How do you see leading global player like Netflix being able to democratize this industry in a way to offer quality jobs and also to be part of the process of country level creating talent pools, which also reaches out to like now you do languages as well, right? I mean, now if you think about a regional industry in Assam in India, if they want to be part of the global industry, can you help them, or can you help others in the region to be part of the global industry by virtue of technology?
Yeah, thank you so much, Shanti, and thank you to all the ADB and Juni as well for having us today. Yeah, I think I would like to start with something that I see when I travel to different regions, right? To Latin America, to Africa, even in Europe. Asia is leading the way on creative industries and creative storytelling, right? Like in Mexico, where I am from, the consumption of Korean content has opened the door also to the consumption of Thai content and other elements that were not possible 10 years ago, right? So I think, as Ludo mentioned on the presentation, there is this window of opportunity, and I think at Netflix, we really think on how local stories can travel everywhere, right? But also how we can always be relevant for the markets where we do operate. So I think seeing this leadership from countries in Asia, we're also really, really hopeful of seeing in this region the next wave of storytellers coming from the region, but also from high-end technical expertise, right? And I think that's why it's so important that organizations such as the ADB and others are engaged on this research of knowledge that we need to get that right. Just to give you an example and to answer your questions, how we think about the spillover effect, right, of the creative industries. So the first time I had the chance to go to a movie set, I was really impressed, because normally when you think about a movie, you think about the director, you think about the actress, the actors. But when I got inside a movie set, I saw, first of all, that it's a huge logistical and almost engineering mission that you have to do, in which you have to combine a lot of technical, physical elements with people management. And as you were saying, a lot of transferable skills that you can see in way other industries. On a second layer, you also have an ecosystem of small and medium companies and enterprises that might not create directly the content or produce the content, but that are very important for the production. And I will give you an example that I saw in Vietnam while we were producing a movie in Hanoi. So the team needed some costumes for the actors, and we need to go with a local tailor that was really like doing local outsourcing. And the impact that this movie production had on this small business and this local tailor is huge. So we might not think directly on these SMEs when we do think about creative production, but think about also food companies, catering companies, transportation companies that also generate jobs. So I think that second layer is very important. And apart from, as Ludovica mentioned as well in the presentation, outside of the US, we do most of our productions through creative partners in each country, right? And I think that's very important. Like Netflix doesn't come with cameras and crew. No, we partner with local producers. We partner with local players to produce those shows. And that's our first engagement, right? Like to drive this through a partnerships-driven approach. And on a second layer, since 2021, we have rolled out globally the Creative Equity Fund program, which precisely looks at gaps on different parts of the pipeline, especially when it comes to capacity of the pipeline, to really invest smartly and intentionally on addressing some of the problems. And I think for us, this has worked as a great pilot of how we can push through this creative equity approach, more talent in the different countries. And I think we have partnered with organizations, you mentioned Shanti, in Latin America, the Inter-American Development Bank, also with UNESCO, to really see how we can amplify these efforts. But definitely, I think the opportunity in Asia region is really big, and we're looking forward to keep collaborating with the bank on this.
Wonderful, thank you. Dudu, I'll come to you on the end, but I just want to get to a couple of more points from our panelists in response to your presentation, but also looking ahead. Fita, you mentioned a very important point about IP and really helping the country to come up with original content. You're also leading the way in creating the innovation ecosystem or strengthening the innovation ecosystem in the country. And are also the science and technology roadmaps. So what would be your top 2 or 3 priorities by which this type of a roadmap can also serve the creative industry and also bringing young people, creative young Filipinos into the global fray, and also the artisans and others, who may benefit from going digital. So where their craft is kind of hidden in small locales, how do we bring them to the global stage? Any thoughts from you on that?
Yeah, thank you again, Shanti. I think those are really very important points. And we are currently implementing a program. It's called Marikaing Pinoy program in Filipino. But in English, it's something like creative program for the country. And under this program, we try to address the barriers affecting the growth and development of the industry. We're trying to build a creative learning academy, which would, of course, cover the youth along with the current workers and potential workers in order for them to be upskilled and reskilled. And of course, we are coordinating as well with our Higher Education Commission, along with our universities. And we're also pursuing this lifelong learning, which really is vital for the success of our creative industry roadmap. So apart from the Creative Learning Academy, then we're also implementing what we call a Philippine Skills Framework program. Well, this is an initiative in order to help us address the skills gaps, the skills mismatches in the creative industry, especially considering the entry of all these new technologies. It's really important for us to upskill and reskill the workforce. And we're doing this skills framework together with other government agencies, and closely. We're working very closely with the industry because in terms of identifying what the future skills and competencies that we would be needed in the future, it's really important for us to discuss this and identify all of these future needs together with industry. And then, of course, the findings, the results in terms of identification of all the jobs and the skills and competencies that would be needed for each job. We work together with the academe as well as with our TechVoc education system in order for us to really be able to bridge the gaps, as well as review the curriculum and introduce all the curricular changes that would be needed for us to be able to ensure that the workers to be demanded by the industry in the future would be sufficiently provided. And then, of course, we're also doing a lot of intelligence, market intelligence work in order for us to ensure that we'll be able, our programs and policies would be able to address the needs, the global needs, and also position our industry in terms of deepening our participation in the global value chains of the different global companies. And apart from this, we're also focusing our efforts towards building more creative and innovation hubs. This would contain both the equipment that would be needed, studios where our artists and freelancers in particular and other small companies can go. There are co-working spaces as well as other 3D printers and laser cutters, all the necessary tools that are needed to help them improve as well as to do their prototypes and eventually launch all these ideas into new products and services, and also for us to be able to connect them with global producers, with investors, with studio owners, in order for us to ensure that we'll be able to commercialize all of this. So we're doing quite a lot of international marketing as well. We are participating in international fairs and exhibitions. Like for this year, we just went to the Annecy Film Festival in France, and then we also participated in XDS for game development in Canada, and we'll actually be having as well something similar to XDS, the Game Development Summit. It's an international event to be held in Boracay next year. And we hope to invite everyone, particularly those coming from the region. We hope we'll be able to showcase and highlight all the original content coming from the different countries. And for us really to work together to make ASEAN a creative economy hub, whether in animation, in game development, along with the other digital services that we can offer under the creative industry.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. Game Summit in Boracay. How many of you want to go to the Game Summit in Boracay?
Thank you so much.
Excellent.
Boracay is a wonderful place. So, apart from the games, you have to enjoy the beach, and especially for those coming from the cold country. I mean, that's still winter, so you better go to Boracay.
Yeah, thank you. I will now ask Yeli and Sergio. Please ignore the timer. It's supposed to be 2 minutes. So we also want to take some questions. I want you to share about 2 points. One is like you said, Fita mentioned the Creative Industry Academy. So these will look very different as training and skills institutions from the regular technical training institutions that we're used to. So what would be your wish list if you were to see a flourishing of training institutions for the creative industry? What kind would you be interested in? What kind would you like to support? That's one. And the second point is, what is the most important policy aspect or regulatory aspect that we should really unlock? I mean, given that the Philippines Act is also into play, but going forward in other countries, one, if you can just pick on one major topic on government policy. Just these 2 points, but very briefly, 2 minutes each, please.
Sure, I'll just keep it short. So on the first point, I think maybe just picking up on where Ludo's presentation ended with a sort of a program that the Singapore government kicked off, which was more of industry-led kind of training programs. I think that's something that's worked quite well for Tencent in collaboration with the government as well as with academic institutions and the students, where it's a concept of company-led training, because who else knows the skills that are in demand better than the industry? And these are trainees that the company takes on. It's not just to be absorbed into the company's workforce, but it's skills that are trained for the industry. So in terms of where the government's coming from, it doesn't matter whether you take on 2, 5, 10, 20, as long as people get released back into the ecosystem, the company can absorb 2 people, 3 people, as many as they can in the local office. But it's more important that a group of people come in, know what the industry needs, and then goes back and contribute to the rest of the ecosystem. So I think that's quite an important, useful model that we can all ponder on. So quite quickly, next on maybe policy, I think maybe I'll go back to a story, it's quite timely because we had a focus group discussion with another government in Southeast Asia, together with industry partners. And one point that the industry partner came up and mentioned is, does the government want the game industry to grow for the game industry itself or for other purposes? So I think it was a very frank and candid response. But I think there's a lot of talk about revenue. There's a lot of talk about how much the games industry can boost the economy. None of that, I mean, all of that is true. But I think at the heart of the industry, whether it's in the creative economy or in the games industry, it's the artisans that Shanti you're talking about. It's the gamers, the game developers, the producers, the artists, the actors. And they feel the passion for it. They want to know and they want to have the trust of the government that, hey, this is an industry that the government believes in, will grow for the long term. Because we've seen the game industry, for example, rise and fall. And the most recent trend that's come in is the mobile phone trend, where everything is happening on your phone. And that has seen a great upshot in the growth of the industry. So what I think at the heart of the industry, the talent in the industry, they want to know that, hey, the government believes in them, wants to grow the industry sustainably. And I think what the Philippines has done very well is investing not just in education, but I think there's also a program launched on Startup Investors Fund to make the industry somewhat more sustainable for the long term. And I think that's what the industry, participants in the industry really wants to see from the stakeholders. I know I've overrun.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Sergio?
No, thank you. And I was just saying like, yes to everything you said. But I will add that, in order to be a great director, producer, editor, or post-production, a lot of the learning happens actually doing the job, right? Like, so if you ask a producer, like, what did you study? Some of them don't even remember, right? Like, because a lot of the learning has been in the job. So I think empowering small and medium businesses, SMEs on the creative sector to actually make them the ones that deliver that long life education is key, right? And I think those trainings and those skills that can happen in the job and get people exposed to that training will need a lot more of recognizing that a film producing company is an SME, right? Just as a startup that does tech, it is, right? So giving more recognition from policymakers to creative SMEs, I think is key, and integrate them into other programs where we give access to financing to make sure these SMEs can train their workforce. And I agree with you, then that won't only stay with one producing company that trains, that will benefit the whole ecosystem. And I think the second one, more than policy, I think there is a need of political willingness of recognizing that creative economy is the new infrastructure, right? Like we know how development banks have invested in infrastructure, pushing a lot of progress in our countries. But right now, I think the second wave we're facing is the infrastructure we need right now is that creative and digital creative talent to make our economies thrive. So having that political volunteer from our governments, I think is key.
Great, excellent points. Thank you. I mean, bringing in the SMEs into the fold and giving them access to finance. Thank you. I think I would have liked to ask one more round, but I think we should also give an opportunity to our audience to answer. Yusek Fita, would you like to take this up on this availability of scholarships and special grants? And then maybe I can also ask Ludo in case she came across any incentives as part of our desk research. Yusek Fita
yes,
first.
we're actually there are already existing scholarships and special grants, but these are offered to not only to the creative industries, particularly to the digital creatives, but offered to other areas where which are being prioritized by the country. But our policy direction now is really to create our own creative industries scholarship and grants. We've started by, we're not actually directly providing it to the universities, not yet, but we're working together with cities as well as the Department of Trade and Industry. We have regional offices which are coordinating the all these grants to the different cities. We actually made a call for proposals for the cities to come up with their own programs that would uplift, that would provide support for the growth and development of their own creative sectors. And of course, what we want is for them to really be able to highlight where they are strong in, particularly when we talk about the digital creative. So a lot of them, we actually awarded just last Monday grants amounting to around 3 million pesos per city. And most of the proposals were really geared towards providing scholarships and trainings to their creative workers and artists, together with other activities that would showcase their talents, their work at the end of the different courses. So yes, is the short answer.
Thank you. A lot of interesting things happening already. Ludo, do you have any points that you'd like to add?
Yes, I take this opportunity, I take the opportunity of these questions to link to what Sergio was saying before about the importance of enabling SMEs also to provide training, because those are the ones that really make the sector. And while doing the study, I encountered a very interesting example that is being used by the UK government. The UK government has an apprenticeship scheme. Big companies need to pay 0.5% of payroll costs into a fund that then the government uses to fund apprenticeships. But the interesting thing there is that for levy payers, so the big companies, the subsidy is only like 5–10% of the total cost. But for SMEs, it is 90%. So it's really a redistribution of money, basically, that really allows SMEs to take on interns, having almost the whole cost of it subsidized. And I think this it's an incentive scheme that is very interesting and offers good points for reflection.
Thank you. Thank you. The UK has done extremely well, right, in terms of promoting their creative industries and also in the number of events, global events that they host and encourage. I want to turn to the two industry people. I mean, in terms of your wish list on, getting quicker traction on the right policies of the ground, if you could just speak to a minute each on how, there are many competing demands on capabilities. But if you think about the creative industry, so what could be the way to build up that capacity? So I think somebody's asking whether we have the right and the wrong, but what would be the right approach to build up that capacity quicker than it might take otherwise? The speed of
I think, in terms of priorities, right, I will point really to the post-production VFX area as the most urgent one, and also I think the most interesting when it comes to transferable skills. So we were mentioning someone that is an expert on VFX can do a lot of different jobs. So I would say prioritizing maybe, and I think India has been a great example through their positioning as a VFX hub, showcasing this. And on the how, I think in the short term, because we know sometimes policy making timelines are long, I think experimenting with public-private partnerships and schemes is really, really an interesting area. We developed with the IDB in Latin America a sandbox project to really get audiovisual careers closer to regions in Colombia and to young people in Colombia that, or their parents, right, that didn't knew that these careers were possible, right? Like, so finding those short-term interventions that then can serve as examples for long-term policy solutions, right? I think experimenting through these public-private collaborations, I think it's something that can help us to make things like good but quick kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just jump on to the same point that pilots, we find that pilots with the governments work very well. Pilots that's tripartite, so it's the academic institution, it's the industry partner and the government, and to launch pilot training programs. And I think I just want to touch on a point on AI, for example, and I think that has impacted the creative industry quite a fair bit. I think there's both sides of the coin to look at it, and it does bring up SMEs, smaller game indie studios to level up. You just need 2 or 3 game developers as opposed to 1,000 or 100 to build a huge map now with the power of AI. So that really levels the playing field, and I think that quickens things a lot. So in terms of embracing, and of course within the safe parameters of where AI can be applied, I think gaming is quite a safe space to start off with. So embarking on such pilots, using new technologies like AI, bringing in the smaller players, indie players, together with bigger industry players like ourselves, for example, I think that's a good collaboration model in terms of rolling out a game quite quickly. I think that's the new model. For Tencent, we have this thing called games as a service, where you don't wait till you produce the game 100%, but you release it in batches, in bits, and you slowly add on to the game itself. And I think that's how we can move faster together with industry players, smaller industry players, as well as government.
Thank you so much. Just before closing, I think we're almost the same, but still I just want to give like 1 minute to Ludo and to last word to Sequita. If you were to articulate 2 main recommendations in the report that you're going to be finalizing, what would they be? Very brief.
I wanted to stress 2 points, I think, that I've already kind of touched upon in the presentation. The first one is tailoring policies, because we talk about creative industries, but creative industry, like the subsectors, are very different from one another, and the professional profiles need very specialized skills. So really, there is no one size fits all. And second point is, I think, private collaboration, especially in terms, like, considering that lifelong learning is becoming increasingly crucial. I think the government alone cannot do it. It's very hard. You need to know the industry well. So really having dialogue with the private sector is crucial. It's like the way forward.
Great. That's exactly the question I wanted to ask you, Sequita, to close on. What would be our big ask to the industry in terms of helping this industry to grow? And also, what would be our ask to an agency like ADB to collaborate with you? So 2 points. What would be the major area of collaboration from industry and from an international partner?
Well, from the industry, of course, we would need a lot of investments as well to match the infrastructure and the digital and the training and educational programs that government is making. There are also incentives, fiscal incentives that we are providing, subsidies to companies, for example, that will shoot or film here in the Philippines, along with incentives for those that would be producing here in the country, income tax holidays and duty and tax-free importation of your raw materials and capital equipment. But at the same time, of course, apart from the investments, would be really important, especially for ADB, to provide support in terms of helping us come up with better programs that would promote education and training, particularly those that are disadvantaged by the system, and at the same time come up as well with more innovation programs and activities that would help us promote our creative industries. And lastly, if I may, just 1 minute, Shanti. We're also having this contest. We call it Youth Creative Challenge. So we already received a lot of entries covering games, Tencent, covering games as well as animated films and films for Netflix. Since the Netflix people are here, I don't know whether there are investors or producers in the room, but we have this contest, like what I've said. And apart from those, we also have graphic novels and theater plays and music. We've actually discussed this with AWS and Microsoft, and both of them are really very interested in being part, either as judges or as investors in the future for the winners. And the amount that we're giving is really a huge amount that would help each of the grand winners to be able to commercialize their work.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to all the panelists for this very interesting conversation. And I think this is only the beginning of the conversation. There's a lot more. And then thank you again for your great presentation. Thank you, Isekvita and Yole and Sergio. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Thank you, everyone, for coming today.